Hey, what's up guys? My name's Sam Arts and welcome back to the internet's most informal / formal design channel on the internet. Today's video we're going to be going over how you can make your own thumbnails. This could be for all sorts of channels and mainly targeted at gaming channels, seeing as that is the more common audience that I come from. However, you can apply this sort of style to any sort of channel that you have, whether it be vlogging, whether it be cooking, something like that. You can still use these tips and apply them to those sort of thumbnails. First thing we're going to have to do is of course open up Photoshop. Okay, so we have Photoshop here, and the first thing as usual is we go to File, New, and we're going to make sure that you have the same settings as me. We're going to go all the way over to Film and Video, and then NTC, but we're going to change that again to HDV, HDTV, and then you should have a 1280 by 720 pixel, and then make sure the resolution is 72, RGB color, 8-bit, and everything should match what I've got right there. Okay, so now that this is loaded up, we're just going to start with getting our main base image, and possibly suggesting some fonts. The font I mainly use is Evogria or Evogria. I'm not sure how to properly pronounce it, but I'll show you what it is and I'll show you where you can get your fonts from. So here I'm going to load up Chrome, I'm going to go to images, and I'm going to get a picture from a game called Destiny. So I'm going to type in Bannerfall tree, and that's going to give me kind of a screenshot from the game, which I think has some nice colors, and you can do this with just about anything. Just make sure that it has nice colors, because that's typically the easiest kind of photo to manipulate in terms of stuff like this. So we're going to command copy that, or control copy, or you can just of course minimize the window and just drag the image on. Now it's better when you find an image that takes up the whole thing. Make sure it's not too pixelated, but we are going to shove that straight in the middle, and then we are going to defocus this. Now how do we defocus this? Well, we go to filter at the top, we go to blur. You can typically go to lens blur, but I think sometimes that overdoes it a bit, so I'm just going to go to Gaussian blur, and obviously it's turned up to a very high setting there, so we're just going to bring it down until we're comfortable with the setting that we like. Right about 3.9 I have the sort of blur that I really like. Now next I'm going to command U or control U this, and I'm going to go to my saturation. I'm going to turn this down quite a bit, just because I don't want the colors of this messing too much with the foreground text. Now to add to this whole image that we have here, we're going to go over and create a new layer right down at the bottom. And now I'm not sure if the majority of the people watching this, but a lot of people have trouble with how to create lighting in Photoshop, and it's very simple sometimes. I'm going to go over to my shape tool, select the circle, make my primary color white. You can make it any color, to be fair. In fact, we're actually going to go over and kind of match it to this soft pink that's going on here. So now we're going to go over and create this circle just above the layer. I'm just going to get rid of the properties right there, and we're just going to drag it to maybe about there. Try and mix and match with this again, as I usually say. Gaussian blur, rasterize the shape, and with this is why I usually have my settings really high up. So yeah, there you go. You've got kind of now like your lighting sort of setting just going over the thumbnail, and in fact I'm going to turn the saturation down quite a bit more with that base layer, just because I don't want it messing in the way too much. I'm just going to remove a few of these rulers just because I'd like you guys to have a better idea of what's going on. Okay, so now we've got the base type of style that we want to go for. We can also do sorts of stuff where we cut off the sides and stuff like that, but that's entirely up to you. That's entirely up to your sort of style and preference, but I'm just going to be going with a very nice and sort of clean style. In fact, I'm going to Command J to copy that style, to copy that layer. I'm going to completely spin this layer around, and I'm going to remove all saturation from it, just to make sure it's a type of white glare. I just want a nice white glare on this layer. So now if we're going to be looking at fonts, I'm going to recommend you to a website called dafont.com. So dafont.com right there, and this is going to be, it's probably the easiest place. Nice little bat rail thumbnail up there. Anyway, we're going to be looking at sort of fonts that I like to recommend. The main one I said I use, of course, is Evogria. So we're going to type that in, and we got that right there. You just simply download that, and you can install it. Whether you have it on a MacBook, it's easier to install, but if you have it on anything else, You're probably going to have to use some sort of extraction program or software to help you do that, but it's not too hard to download it, and it will recommend you what to do to be able to extract the files and download them. But we're going to go ahead, and I'm literally just going to type in how to make, and that's going to be my first kind of text layer. And now I'm going to go over, and I'm just going to make this white. I just want this to be white for a second. I'm going to take away that kind of tilt that I had, that italics. I'm going to Command T. Of course, you can just go up to the top and make the text bigger. And I'm going to get this straight in the middle right there. And I give this a nice little shadow. I'm going to give this quite a dark shadow because obviously in terms of gaming thumbnails, I see that this is something that a lot of people like to do, and it really does just help in terms of making the video stand out. So we have how to make, and then we'll have A, because I like to go with typically 3 lines of text on my thumbnails. It just helps with kind of protruding the video out a lot better, and it's nice catchy subtitles one after the other. We're going to again put the same drop shadow on that. Luckily it saves your settings. And then this layer is going to be the more important one. So with this one we're going to change it up a bit. We're going to type in our third layer, our third line of text, and of course I'm just going to make that thumbnail. Just for purposes, I'm just going to make that white again. I'm going to make that the same size, but I'm going to get it in the middle with all the others. But now with this one, I'm going to make a layer underneath it. So I'm going to make the layer, drag the layer underneath it, and then I'm going to go to my selection tool over here, and then I'm going to make a box behind this. And now I used to use this on a lot of my old thumbnails, so a lot of people are probably going to be happy that I'm finally showing them how I did that. So there we go, we have some sort of selection box behind it on this empty layer. And then we're going to go over to our paint bucket, and we can just simply fill this in. It doesn't really matter for now what sort of color this is. Now you may like your thumbnails just like that, and that's completely fine. That's a very clean looking thumbnail just with this text through it. However, I like to change it up a bit, and then what I do is go back over to my third line of text, my thumbnail layer. I get the magic wand, I hold shift, and I select each and every layer. Alright, so now I've got that. I'm going to go back to my shape, my pink shape right there, and I'm just going to click delete. And now I'm going to click Command D to get rid of those selections. I'm going to show you now my favorite part about this, and we're going to hide the thumbnail text, or in fact we can just go ahead and delete that thumbnail text, and there we go. We have the actual letters engraved into the shape. And now one of the main ones that people like to go for in terms of gradients to put on these things is this orange and yellow one. It's just a very well used one, and you can of course play with the angle of this whichever way you'd like it to go. Another thing I'd like to do is just add an inner glow. You can change this to all sorts of things, like screen is probably the main one. If you look, it adds kind of like a little highlight into the letters. And then of course, again, we'll just go with a nice little drop shadow just to make sure that it does sort of stand out. So there you go, that's basically the forefront on how to make your thumbnail. But if you're a gamer, you're probably going to want something a bit more advanced. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. Okay, so the first thing I like to do is get your top layer, hold shift, and go all the way down to your first text layer. Now we're going to hold control, we're going to bring up this menu, and we're going to rasterize layer style. We're going to bring it up again, go to merge layers, and now they are all one layer. Everything to do with text is one layer. So what I'm going to tell you to do is Command T this, bring this to the side, and make this slightly smaller. Now you can have it like this and then add in any additional sort of graphics on the side of your thumbnail, and it's best to have your text on the left side of the thumbnail as the timestamp usually comes up on the right side, so it can block up some of your graphics and you don't want it to block up the text especially. We're going to go over to edit. Now we're going to go over to transform, and we are going to go to distort. And now with distort we can kind of mix and match and do all sorts with this. We can make a nice kind of bend in terms of the text. So now that we've got that, we are going to add in some additional graphics. So I'm going to go back over to Chrome, and I'm going to go to Google, and let's say because this is a Destiny 2 thing, we can either get a picture of a gun and pen tool it, which I in fact am going to do. So this is an image that I screen capped a while ago from the Destiny 2 beta. I'm just going to simply make this the type of size that I would like it to be. So I'm typically looking at the pistol being about this big on the screen. I'm going to pull it to the right side, and then I'm going to put it below the text just so I can kind of see what's going on. And again, you could just have that as the background, that's completely fine. However, I'm going to be chopping out the background and letting this gun be kind of shadowed against what's behind it. So we're going to get over to our pencil, and I'm going to speed this part. I'm just going to speed this part up because it does take quite long. But I'm going to give you a tip, and that is when you do a bend and you want to, you know, if I click like this, it's going to create the bend. But if I want to make this just a new point, I'm going to click Alt, and then it'll go in a straight line. And that's how you start your new anchor point. But I'm just going to speed this part up, guys, and hopefully you know how to do this. So you're just going to follow along with this, and I'll see you once this is done. So now that I have the weapon outlined, I'm just going to make sure that I make a big selection around the entire thing, because I don't want to let any sort of the background be left outside of the image. So now that we have all of that and we've rounded it up and joined it, we're going to go over to selection, OK, and there we go. We can just delete that, and then we have this gun kind of on top of this other image. We're going to go and double click that layer. We can click shadow and give it a nice harsh shadow against the background of this. Of course, we want something like a normal, and we can actually put this above the two lighting sections that we have. However, I'm just going to keep it under because I like sometimes having the weapon under the lighting. Instead of having a drop shadow, however, you can have some sort of lighting or outer glow. I like to typically go to vivid light, making sure that this is on quite a high sensitivity or high opacity, and then making sure that there you go. You can see now that it's very highlighted because it's pushed out of the light. And again, just to make sure that the weapon is brighter, vivid light the inner glow. And there you go, you can have that just the same. Of course, you can put it again above the two lightings if you'd like, and that's completely up to you. That's completely up to how you would like to do that. So there you have it, really. That's how you can make a thumbnail. You can do all sorts of stuff with this. This is just kind of one of my very basic ones. If I ever wanted to go into a very extended version of how you can do this, then do let me know if you want to see any advanced kind of tutorial on this sort of thing. However, guys, I do hope that you did enjoy today's video and that you do enjoy my tutorials. If you ever have another tutorial that you'd like to request on the channel, make sure to comment on this, and please do subscribe and like the video. All helps out very much, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. See ya.